All right, welcome to the 35th Wharf Call. It is November 8th. Do our normal quick updates, see where the conversation takes us, and go from there. So, big things are that the website is kind of in full review at this point. All the pages are done, most of the documentation's done. We are targeting a release for next week. We're coordinating and going to have that out by the time this next call happens. So that'll include things that I mentioned. We will have a bunch of new releases coming out at the same time. Probably a blog post talking about it. Well, definitely a blog post talking about it. And yeah, so we'll be talking a lot about that next week. In terms of updates to the actual code itself, the Atomic Assets client is coming together. I saw that there are reviews going internally right now of the code base. I personally haven't been involved in it yet, so I can't really speak a whole lot to like what level of feedback that has been so far. But there is a functional version of it. Whether or not that functional version is exactly what we need it to be, that's kind of what we are reviewing. We tried to start that, I think, 2 weeks ago, and then realized Atomic Assets was actually 2 contracts. And so we had to kind of retrofit the SDKs to match those contracts. That all has come together pretty quick. As a team that doesn't heavily interact with Atomic Assets, we'll probably be looking for feedback from the teams that are. So this will be a kind of an early release version, and then we'll try to collect some community feedback as we push towards a 1.0. If we don't get much feedback, our initial version might be the 1.0. But we at least want to make sure we can seek some feedback from people who are way more versed than we are in it. So that's coming together. That was one of the line items from milestone 6 that has kind of held milestone 6 up from being completed, despite everything else from that milestone actually being completed. I'm just going to move down the list, I guess. The tutorial is starting to come together. We have a lot of the code base written. Not a ton of it's committed yet, but there's some local branches that haven't been pushed up yet that'll really flesh that together. We put that aside this week to focus on the release for next week. So not a ton to talk about there that we haven't talked about already, but it will be a good showcase on how to like get started in the antelope space. It's going to be using the jungle testnet, as I think we mentioned before. There'll be like optional chapters in the beginning that's like, do you need a jungle account? Here's how you use the command line tool to make one. Yeah, so don't have to get super deep in that, but we'll be talking about that a lot soon. There'll be a whole video series on that. There are releases starting to happen in a lot of these other libraries. We're working to coordinate all of that, so that way there is this bundled, everything's ready type scenario and everything's compatible. This is one of those situations where I can see the benefits of a mono repo or something along those lines, where it bundles everything and you can do more easily do releases of this magnitude. But we're pushing through it just as individual repos like we would normally. And I think the last big thing is the account creation stuff is really starting to take shape. I shared some stuff in Telegram about that. We have the plugin architecture in the Session Kit 1.1 and the Web Renderer 1.1. The Gray Mass plugin that leverages our account creation system, that it's the same thing we use in the Anchor app, as well as at create.anchor.link, that website that allows you to purchase accounts. This will wrap that service in one of these plugins, so that way any app can present users with the option to create an account. This wasn't part of the roadmap, but we've also created a jungle one. I don't know why that's not showing up here. Oh, this page is actually old. I needed to refresh it. There it is. This takes the same APIs we built for the command line tool and presents it so that way we can highlight how free accounts could potentially be created through one of these plugins. If you select the option and say, I want a jungle account, it pops up immediately. Actually, I wonder if I could just show that. We got a video here. I believe it's not that one. This pull request. Let's see if it's there. So in our test suite, we've added a bunch of new buttons for the account creation plugin. This is a new method like login on the session kit. You can call sessionkit.login and it'll perform a login. You can now call sessionkit.createAccount, camel cased, and it will then trigger any account creation plugins that have been loaded into the session kit. If there are no plugins loaded in, it just pops up with an error and says you don't have any plugins. So developers will need to catch that or not use it if they're not using any plugins. But once you click create, it asks you to select a service provider. This one just pops up our account creation service, which is being slow. And then it goes through the process. This will go through the checkout. Then it walks the user setting up Anchor. And then Anchor will take over and be like, hey, let's back up your account. The thing I rambled about in Telegram is that once you create an account, it obviously won't have an error, but the user will need to come back and just log in. There's no seamless transition from create to login. And that has the potential to be kind of a future upgrade that we could take on as a community. It wasn't in scope for this project, and it's not something that Wharf can just do by itself. Like right now, our account creation service doesn't return the account name, and it doesn't establish a session automatically. So this is to say
that would also be problematic anyway, because you can't return it from the window to the parent window, right?
We could use some sort of post messaging protocol, I think. I think you can do that with pop-ups. But all of this to say that the wallets themselves don't support this. So we need the wallets to support this in order to be able to do it.
Cat's going ham right now.
Yeah, she is. I'm trying to get her to shut up. She's singing the song of her people. So that's our plugin that exists. We also created this jungle one that I was mentioning. And when you click this, it literally calls the API and creates an account. This QR code, if you were to scan it with Anchor, would find a Jungle 4 account right now and let you import it automatically. There's also the option to copy the key out to the clipboard. This obviously is not a really secure method of creating an account because the browser through the SDKs was responsible for creating this private key. And now the key has been exposed in kind of an unsecure space, and now you're importing it. If we were ever doing this in kind of a production environment, we'd want this to be something where, you'd import this into a wallet like Anchor, and then Anchor would know that hey, this was an insecure key. Let's create new keys securely in the app, then change the keys, perform that transaction, and get you all set up so that way you're safe. But since this is testnet, we don't really care. So this could be a really nice way to just get started in a testnet. And it's also a really good highlight of what the plugin can do. This plugin is utilizing all of the Wharf prompt custom UI elements. The plugin itself, actually, I can just jump back to it real quick. That was not there. If we go look at the plugin, I don't even have it open. Go to the Jungle 4 plugin. Jungle 4. Plugin is fairly simple. It has a single method. And then after the account, we're generating some data. Here's where we're creating the key. We're making the API request to create the account. We're making sure it's good. And then it uses the web renderer's prompt call, which is what generates that element there at the end that we saw with the QR code and the button and stuff. You can see we're creating an element that is a QR code, and the data for the QR code is just the private key. We're also creating a button, and there are a few properties you can pass in, like the label of the button is copied to clipboard. You can see when you click it, it's copying to the clipboard. And then there's a variant that just styles the button. So this single call is what does that prompting, and other account creation services can leverage the UI specification in order to be able to pull this same kind of thing off. It's the same thing that Transact plugins and Wallet plugins and all the other plugin architecture can use. So, and then at the end, we're just returning a promise.
They have to create their own quote unquote plugin for this though, right?
Yes, each account creation service would need to create their own plugin that performs kind of whatever it takes to create an account.
But this could be done inside of their front end. They don't actually have to create a plugin that's importable, right? They could just create the class.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they wouldn't have to create a distributable plugin. And I think that's true with all types of plugins. Just in that, you don't have to publish it as like a public package that other people can use. You could just build that into your code base, and then you would just include it in the instantiation of the session kit.
Right.
So, and the gray mass plugin is somewhat similar, except the gray mass plugin just opens a pop-up window and waits for its response. I think we're doing some of our stuff. The code is actually buried over here. Yeah, we're creating a pop-up window, opening it, and then we are listening for a message from the pop-up window. So this, going back to your first question, this is kind of related to how we can send data back and forth. But
gotcha.
Right now, neither the service, which is just a web service that we operate, nor Anchor will share that kind of data. So going back to that other point of how we can improve this process, both account creation services would need to be updated and wallets would need to be updated to really create a seamless experience. Whereas if you create an account, you're automatically logged in. That's a Web 2.0 thing that I think many people have come to expect out of web applications. It's really old school if you have to go create an account and then you have to go back and log in at this point. So
what is the lift in terms, because it's not Anchor itself that is the issue, it's the account creation service, right?
It's kind of both, because the way our account creation service works is we hand you off to Anchor. When you purchase an account through our flow, the purchase is for a code. It's a redemption code. And then after you purchase that code through our service, we email it to you, we show it to you on the screen, and we give you a clickable or scannable link that then triggers Anchor with that code. And then Anchor redeems that code and creates the account inside of the app. So that way we know that the keys are being generated securely. We can mark that as redemption. We can make sure that it was paid for.
I see. So you would have to leave the pop-up open with like a please don't close this window loading while they go through that flow, and then at the end of that, return from the pop-up that it was successful along with the account name and whatnot.
Yep. Our service was very much created with the expectation that you just go to the service and it's in a browser window. And then we send you the email so that way you have the redemption link just in case you close the window without redeeming it. But it really wasn't designed with this in mind. So there'd be some lifting needing to be done on that service, and then Anchor itself, since it takes over, in the end would need to be able to establish a session automatically. So the account creation service doesn't know what your session ID is and what your callback URL would be, and some other information that'd be required for an Anchor session to be set up automatically. So there's lifting there that would need to be done as well.
I know we talked about this before. I just don't remember the answer. There's no way to get a public key, or rather, there's no way to request an unlinked public key from Anchor, right? Like one that's just loose.
Yeah, but that came up in our chat over the last week was that if we did that, if there was a request for key protocol, essentially, you could ask the wallet to generate a key and save it, and then return me the public key. That would open up, anyone would be able to create an account creation service and leverage that,
right.
So that would certainly be another really good thing. And if it was standardized, other wallets could adopt it, and then this could become just this, any wallet and any account creation service could pair together to do this account creation.
That ended up being exactly what I did after running the same gauntlet with Scatter, because there's just there's not many ways to get around it without adding a lot of infrastructure, especially in terms of like passing messages back between centralized servers and the application, which I don't know, it always seemed so brittle.
Yeah, most definitely. So working on this though, like we've really seen where that could benefit the ecosystem, and it's not part of the Wharf planet right now, so we're not working on it right now, but certainly that maybe this is a project for next year to kind of open this up and really improve this experience between creating and logging in. So
I think Wharf is probably an excellent place to start putting that, because it would force the quote unquote force the other wallets to understand that that is now a standard, and they have the possibility of adopting it for better user experience.
yeah, really agreed. Oh, there's the cat again. Shh. Yeah. And like in UAL, how they had I don't remember what it was. It was like sign arbitrary or something like that. Whenever a wallet didn't support it, like the plugin would just throw. But having that as something that the plugin would need to adopt, like create key or whatever,
Right.
it's like then we're now encouraging wallets to support some form of protocol. Doesn't matter exactly what it is, but we're asking you, the wallet, to make these keys, and then the return value is a public key, or maybe an array of public keys. I don't know.
Honestly, I think that's the best. It's the sneaky way forward, but it's also the best way forward. I think going the route of saying, hey, we support this, and then when the users are frustrated because X wallet doesn't support it, they're the ones who go and bother the wallet, because you can reach out to
Yeah.
these 15 wallets 10 times a day. It's just one person, they're just going to like block. But if 100 people start reaching out to them, be like, hey, why don't you support this, it gets on their radar.
Yep. I know that firsthand.
Yeah, all wallet builders do.
Yep. So, and I think wallets will be losing out. Like they will see that they're losing out to new users if they're not
Right.
supporting something like this. Like it's an onboarding mechanism. And if wallets A and B support it and C and D don't, then developers are going to stop using C and D because A and B will offer that much better of an onboarding experience for their users, whether it's a game or an app or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we've identified a lot here. It will work. When 1.1 is released, account creation will work. It's still not going to be, I think, the solution that everybody's really wants to exist because of this double step process. And then you're going to get account, like as you're creating an account, you're going to get lost in wallet setup. And, there's this big gap between these two where the user needs to go out and learn. But by like showing that gap and putting it in everybody's face, we're going to see that, okay, there's something that could exist here to improve this. And that might be the motivation to actually put resources into making that better. Sort of like, I feel like fuel and anchor being an anchor only thing for a long time showed how like valuable that could be. And that was part of the impetus to even start building Wharf. So this part of Wharf might lead to the next part of Wharf in that same way. So yeah, the plugin can also, like this, I guess, just to kind of show, when you just call create account, it'll prompt for whatever plugins. There are controls to trigger individual plugins. These buttons call the same function, but they specify a plugin. So like this one doesn't prompt and immediately shows whatever the jungle plugin wants. And this one will automatically trigger with whatever Anchor wants. And then you can go one step further with a secondary parameter and specify a blockchain in the event that, maybe you're building an app that's only for EOS or any specific blockchain. You can specify the plugin and then the blockchain, and it will immediately pop up with a specific thing. So like,
Is
you know,
there a way to pass arbitrary props into this?
No, but that probably would be useful, especially for other plugin
For third
developers.
parties, yeah.
Yeah.
Like just um, oh my god, I'm spacing on the name. The dot 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 notation. Um,
Yeah. I just
wow.
I would
Basically,
guess.
passing all of the props along as
Yeah.
destructured or deconstructed
Yeah,
parameters into.
I think as soon as we can get some more account creation services to start using this, that's
Figure out
really
what's
gonna
needed.
that's gonna highlight what we need. I've already been talking to at least one other party that is working on an account creation service that's like, I'm gonna try this. I was like, well, please let us know what doesn't work, so that way we can make sure that we're giving you the data you need to create these accounts.
For create account without for the first button, basically, if there's only one plugin specified, it'll just do the same as the other buttons. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Gotcha.
So in this configuration, if we only had the jungle plugin, it would behave just like this button does, and it just would immediately pop up and be like, here's your account, just because that's how that plugin is specified.
Gotcha.
We modeled this a lot after the login plugin. With the login plugin, it works the same way. Like right now I click login and it has all the plugins, but if there was only one wallet plugin, and if it was like, let's say Anchor, it would start on this screen. Like it'll just automatically trigger whatever plugin exists if there's only one.
Right.
And then there are other calls. Like the login has the same feature. You could call login and you could pass the plugin identifier and it would automatically trigger that specific plugin. So we're trying to make it so that when the developer is in their space, they can build whatever user interface they want. You know, maybe they want an Anchor logo and they want a Scatter logo and some other wallet logos to create a more bespoke experience than this interface. And they can do that with both login and create account. So these are going to be compatible with the 1.1 version. Again, targeting kind of next week as release. Everything's working fairly well on it. We're getting all the dependencies updated. Command line tool has had some fixes. We're at like a 2.0 version, I think, at this point on that now. And that was mainly because of some major dependency changes. The Antelope library has been updated. There's lots of releases in the pipeline. And that's been kind of our focus over the last week or so, along with the website, these account creation plugins, the atomic assets. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of the updates for the last week or so, or week or two. And expect a lot more on the website talking about all of this in the not too distant future. I guess it's also worth noting that signing request finally moved over into the WharfKit world. This used to be under the GrayMass organization. It's finally now under the WharfKit, and it's no longer EOSIO signing request. It's just signing request. We're still going to keep ESR for the prefix because that would just break a lot. But we can just call them signing requests for now.
Need to find a new word for the E.
Yeah. We kind of joked about that a little bit. We could go really generic and that could be electronic.
Everything signing request.
Yeah. So
I do like electronic. I think it's very fitting.
yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Was there anything we wanted to dive into discussion wise this week? I know it's pretty much just you and I and David here today. So I guess if you have anything you want to talk about specifically, I'm down for that. Otherwise, I don't have any big discussion topics.
I think the brunt of the work is, correct me if I'm wrong, being done on atomic assets.
Yeah, in terms of development.
Right. I'm not overly familiar with atomic assets, so I don't know how much discussion I can actually have there.
Yeah, same here. So And then like most of our resources right now has been on documentation for weeks at this point. Whether it's the actual documentation, the guides that are coming out, and then some of it's gone into molding the marketing materials for the website based on the documentation. Like as we wrote the docs, we're like, oh, this is a cool feature. Let's add it to the marketing side of it. So yeah.
Sell the outcome, not the features.
Yeah. Oh, I think we are. So, but feedback on the website will definitely be welcome once that's out as well. We're happy to change it. It doesn't have to be a static thing. Yeah.
Nothing ever is.
Yeah, for real. And I think in terms of these weekly meetings, as we're slowly winding down the milestones, we might take a break from these meetings and then reevaluate if we need a Wharf call moving forward. And that'll kind of depend, I guess, on how we continue on with the developer roundtable. So I'm definitely open to continuing these at some set interval, maybe not weekly.
I think the strength of these will really become in the future assistance to the builders, which I agree with you can just be wrapped up into the developer roundtable. That's the intention for it anyway.
Yeah. So, and I think as the year ends, like it's probably going to slow down in the community. It traditionally has, I feel. I remember in some Decembers where like a couple years ago, it just got really quiet in terms of users because people are off doing other real life stuff, not paying quite as much attention to the blockchain. We'll see if that happens, and maybe that's okay that these meetings wind down and then we kind of reinvent whatever it is next year.
Yeah, people selling off for Christmas to buy presents.
Yeah. And then they don't want to keep paying attention because whenever you sell, it goes crazy.
Yeah. Sigh.
Right.
It has been statistically true for me, have to admit.
Yeah. You always can joke about how, oh, I just sold some. You're welcome, everybody.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I for sure caused Pepe to crash. For sure.
Cool. All right. Well, we can keep this one short. If we don't have too much else next week, we'll be able to show off a lot of the stuff that will have been released at that point. The guides, the new tutorial, I guess, won't be out next week since we've set it down, but that will be an update that follows shortly thereafter. So
what is the new tutorial for?
It's the multi-part tutorial. It's going to be the to-do app. To be on Jungle. It's the one I was talking about earlier.
Gotcha.
So a bunch of chapters that just walk through. Here's how you do the login stuff. Here, now we can add a chapter about account creation. Here's how you use the command line tool to generate the contract code for your front end app. And here's how you create the tables and perform transactions and just like walk through every.
Is this written or is this video or both?
Video.
Well, awesome.
We're not sure what kind of writing. There will be something written to accompany it, but unsure what that'll look like. We're going to record it first and then we'll wrap it with some form of text.
Very cool. Can't wait.
Me neither. It'll just be me talking, so I'll be excited to get that out of the way.
Sir.
Cool. Well, I say we stop this one here and we will reconvene next week.
Alrighty.
Cool.
Looking forward to it. Catch you next week.
Thanks so much. Yep, later.